So welcome everybody. Wow, we had to go looking for chairs. I knew there might be a few people coming along this afternoon, but it's wonderful to see you all here. And Mr. Beach landlocked in the middle there on another item. But welcome everybody, and I declare the August agenda briefing session open. The agenda briefing sessions are used to inform councillors on items of business to be presented and discussed at the forthcoming Ordinary Council meeting. These meetings are open to members of the public who may request to present a deputation to council relating to an item on the agenda. No decisions are made at these meetings, although councillors can request additional information or alternative wording be provided to allow for motions to be prepared for consideration at the forthcoming Ordinary Council meeting. Any statement regarding any planning or development application made during an agenda briefing session is not to be taken as notice of approval. Anyone who has an application lodged with the Shire must obtain and should only rely on written confirmation of the outcome of the application and any conditions attached to the decision made by council. An audio and visual record will be made by means of live streaming of these proceedings and uploaded to the Shire's YouTube page for viewing. Acknowledgement of country. The Shire of Harvey acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay our respects to all members of the Aboriginal communities and their cultures, and to elders and emerging elders both past and present. Record of apologies and leave of absence. Councillor Capagrego is on authorised leave at the moment, and Councillor Hitchcock is an apology for this agenda briefing. Declarations of members and officers' personal interests. Councillors and or staff, are there any declarations need to be made? Councillor Coleman?
Yes, I sent in two to governance on the weekend, one in relation to 5.5.1 Australian Day Citizenship Ceremony, and one confidential matter 7.2.1. So I will stay in chambers and vote on both of those. Impartiality.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Are there any others? Councillor Dickinson?
Yes, impartiality for 7.1.1, the request for tender for the provision of food organics and garden organics, because I'm the chairperson of Bunbury-Harvey Regional Council, and I'll stay in chambers.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Crispin?
Impartiality for 7.1.1. As impartiality, I'll stay in chambers due to the fact that I'm a delegate on the Bunbury-Harvey Regional Council. And then on 5.2.2 Regional Roads Group Project, financial impartiality, as I own business on the area, I'll leave chambers.
Thank you, Councillor Crispin. Councillor Bromham?
Yeah, 7.1.1, I'm the deputy for the Bunbury-Harvey Regional Council. That's an impartiality interest. I'll stay in the chambers and vote on its merits.
Thank you, Councillor Bromham. Are there any others, councillors? Councillor Junio?
On 5.2.2, it might be relating to a family member, so I'd like to leave the chambers, please.
Sorry, what item was that?
The 5.2.2 Regional Road Group project status.
You wish to leave the chambers, Councillor Junio?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Any others, councillors? Staff? No, thank you very much. We'll move into deputations, and I would like to invite Mr. Paul Beach to come forward, please. Mr. Beach, in relation to item 5.5.1. That is the Australia Day Citizenship Ceremony. Welcome back, Mr. Beach. We just turn on the... Well done.
Thank you, Madam President, for the opportunity once again to address you on this topic, which you should know by now is something very close to my heart. But, Madam President, after reading the report, I must say that the goalposts haven't just been shifted, they've been carted off. They've been hidden in the next Shire and possibly sold on Gumtree. At this rate, I might need to enlist the services of Rumpold of the Bailey to help him make all sense of it. But on a serious note, I am extremely disappointed that the new report before you deliberately shifts the focus away from holding citizenship ceremonies on Australia Day in Harvey, Australind, or both simultaneously. And reading between the lines, it's difficult to avoid the conclusion that perhaps the authors do not support Australia Day. That's my conjecture. Let's remember that on page 44, references made of the current agenda, references made to a report that was prepared for the July 25 Ordinary Council meeting, which was withdrawn after councillors and a community member, which I'm guessing was me, raised a significant number of queries. It was obvious that confusion was created between the citizenship ceremony and the broader community elements of Australia Day. And frankly, this came as no surprise. The report was riddled with inaccuracies. And I'd like to point out an inaccuracy in the current report on page 46, where it states that the Harvey Committee contacted conferees to collect background information, but that some conferees have expressed an unwillingness to provide their details. This is misleading at best. I can categorically state that across the hundreds of people naturalised on Australia Day in Harvey, not one has ever objected when approached by a committee member. The only exception I am aware of this year is when one family, I'm not sure it was a family group or a single member, declined when approached, not by our committee member, but by a Shy staff member. I cannot comment why they declined when all the others have been eager to participate. The report in front of you reduces the citizenship ceremony to 3 legislative requirements: authorised presiding officer, the reading of the preamble, the pledge. While these are essential, they are only the bare minimum. The Australia Day Citizenship Ceremonies Code makes it clear the ceremony must be dignified, inclusive and memorable. The full process, welcome to country, the minister's message, formal introductions, presentations of certificates, the national anthem is designed to give the occasion meaning, not simply tick a box. And I have to say that prior to this being legislated, the Harvey Australia Day Breakfast Committee were doing all of those things, and then the legislation came in. These ceremonial elements are most powerful when embedded within an existing community celebration. On Australia Day, new citizens are welcomed in the front of people they live and work alongside. The event becomes a true rite of passage, a public embrace witnessed by the whole community. Centralising or shifting the ceremony away from Australia Day weakens that symbolic connection. It risks turning a deeply significant moment into an administrative task, robbing both the conferees and the community of the shared experience. The logistical challenges cited, staffing, duplication, travel, are secondary. The department itself allows for decentralisation, community-hosted ceremonies, precisely because the local setting strengthens the connection and inclusivity. Australia Day is the nation's most symbolic civic occasion. It is the natural and most meaningful day for new citizens to pledge their loyalty and for the community to stand beside them. Let's not trade that symbolism for the convenience of staff or councillors. Australian citizens is more than a legal status. It is a profound commitment to our shared values, freedoms and responsibilities. The day on which that commitment is formalised should reflect both the gravity and the celebration of becoming part of the Australian family. No date embodies that spirit more completely than Australia Day. Australia Day is the one day each year when our entire nation pauses together to reflect on our history, celebrate our achievements, look forward to the future. It is a unifying moment when the community, large and small, urban and regional, celebrate what it means to be Australian. Holding citizenship ceremonies on this day ensures that new citizens are welcome into the very heart of our national celebrations, not as an afterthought on a quieter day, but as a highlight of our country's most significant civil occasions. The symbolism is powerful. Australia Day is when we affirm our collective identity, is a day when the entire nation recommits the values of democracy, equality, and the rule of law. For new citizens, taking the pledge on this day means joining millions of fellow Australians in that reaffirmation. This is a shared moment, binds new citizens and long-standing Australians together in a new way, strengthening social cohesion and pride. Furthermore, ceremonies on Australia Day maximise community participation. Local residents are already gathering for events, giving friends and family and the wider community a chance to witness, support and celebrate the new citizens in person. This visible presence of citizenship ceremonies within the celebration sends a clear, inclusive message. Australia belongs to us all, and all are welcome who commit to our values. While the Australian Citizenship Act permits flexibility in these dates, exercising that flexibility to avoid Australia Day risks diluting the shared national experience. Moving ceremonies to an alternative date can unintentionally fragment the sense of unity and reduce the symbolic resonance of Australia Day, which it uniquely provides. Citizenship is the final step in a migrant's journey of belonging. To confer it on one day where the whole nation stands together is not just appropriate, it is the strongest possible expression of welcome. Australia Day is not merely a convenient day, it is the most meaningful day. It turns a legal process into a powerful lifelong memory. For these reasons, Australian citizenship ceremony should be held on Australia Day wherever possible, because this is the day that best honours the meaning of citizenship and value of unity in our diverse democratic nation. I strongly urge Council to prepare an alternative motion for next week that reaffirms the status quo, a format that has worked successfully and has been supported by Shire presidents, councillors, staff, community volunteers for over 30 years. No sound reason to date has been put forward to justify changing either the format or the date. And if I'm not here next week, I can offer that to help with the organisation, should it go the way I would like it to go. My committee have suggested that perhaps if we do joint ceremonies, one in Australind and one in Harvey, Australind can go first, earlier in the morning when more people are there, rather than disappearing like has been alluded to later in the day, because the people in Harvey will stay for that particular event. So that's just a bit of an offering, I guess, to help try and get this across the line. So thank you for your time. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Mr Beach. Councillors, are there any questions for Mr Beach? No, thank you. And I'll bring that item forward for you, Mr Beach. Thank you. I now invite Pauline Peterson, who knows her way to the lectern, I'm sure. Welcome back, Pauline, to the chamber. And this is to do with the Market Garden Precinct investigation and redevelopment at Mylup. Welcome, Pauline. Just turn on the microphone, Pauline, thank you. Is that... There we go.
Okay. Thank you, Madam President, councillors and staff, for giving us the opportunity to discuss this at this deputation. So, as residents of the Shire of Harvey, specifically of Thornton Drive, Freshwater Estate and the local farming community, we formally object to the proposal that is going to be put forward to the Shire. Because we feel that there's a multitude of reasons that DPIRD have not addressed in their preliminary fact sheet, and we've put a few of them down in a very high-level way in the report that is in front of you today. This report was put together in less than a week, so please excuse pretty much the unedited version, but we would like you to note it and prepare your questions for DPIRD when they present to you next week. I'll just quickly run through some of the elements of the report, and then please feel free to ask questions afterwards. So the proposed land is what is known as the Pines. This is area of natural beauty in the Shire, and is really well used by a lot of not only residents of the Shire, but a lot of people outside of the area. It's a strip that is 2 kilometres wide and essentially runs between the Harvey Mile Up Road and Goss Road, with a little bit to the south as well. It is bisected by the 10th Lighthorse trail that runs from south to north all the way up to Mandurah. It borders on residential communities and tourism venues both to the west and to the east. And it's mainly occupied by young family and some aged residents, and needless to say, they're particularly vulnerable to airborne pollutants and other issues that may arise out of industrial ventures that will happen here. What I'd like to draw to your attention in the background information are some of the maps and the current tenures that we looked up off the mining site, and I've given a full explanation of what those maps show. There are a number of approvals that will be required by DPIRD before they proceed, and I think the one that affects us most is the matters of national environmental significance. So if you could look through that. Then we'll move on. What we've done is looked at the environment. So the first part of that is all about the forests and what a forest entails, what it's got in this particular forest, which is essentially, it's not just a plantation, it's got a few water bodies, it's got pockets of natural native bush, and there's a lot of ingress of native bush as well. I must say that the forestry department has been looking after this forest in a fantastic way. They thin it out, they make sure that the fires don't reach any of the communities. It's a really wonderful place to recreate in. Just on the forests, just to note that forests are fantastic because they store vast amounts of carbon, especially these days with the climate emergency that abounds. You can simplify it to one overarching problem, and that is the vast quantities of gases like carbon dioxide that our modern life create. Trees produce oxygen, especially young forests. They really are fantastic for offsets. And they are the most effective carbon capturing machine that we know of. They're robust, easily grown, prevalent across the world, and pretty much inexpensive. And in sustainable plantations, they actually pay for a lot more than that. What there is a growing interest in selective harvesting. It's not as effective as the traditional harvesting, where they take a block and actually take out trees that are between 25 and 30 years old. But I've given a whole quote from Rowan Reid, who's a forest scientist, well respected in his field. A lot of private farmers are using this kind of dynamic forest selective harvesting, and it's worthwhile looking into that. Next is the threat to the fauna. There's a diversity of animals and birds in this forest. We've shown some of the animals that we know of, but there'd be a lot more smaller critters that we don't even know about. Probably the most important is the black cockatoo, of which there are 3 types that are endangered, and we certainly know most of them have, in fact, all of them have been seen in that particular forest. And if you look at the maps that have been included, they do the most threatened actually winters in they overwinter in that particular forest, and this area surprisingly houses all of the black cockatoos and a diverse number of other parrots, bird species, bangaras, I don't know if that's how you say it, but the racehorse goannas, frogs, mycelium. There's a huge amount that rely on this forest, so it's not just the plantation. So moving on is the impact on residential communities. Really, as I've noted, there's a lot of people who would be quite sensitive to the either intensive horticultural use or to extractive industries. So residents would be subjected to chemical drift, dust, clawing smells from fertilizers, pesticides, and machinery, noise pollution 24/7 often, irrigation systems, vehicle movements. There'll be a lot of heavy traffic, which will impact the roads. There's a lot of heavy haulage of sands from potential sand mining on the roads, and they're really, specifically, the Mile Up Road is not designed to take such volumes. There certainly would be a visual degradation on what is currently a good outlook, a green and forested environment, which is what we all bought into in those residential areas. Air pollution and odours associated with the large monoculture horticulture, like onions and cabbages, is not particularly pleasant. You can even smell it when you're travelling along the roads and the highways. Major decline in property values. I think that's quite a huge thing. Not only will there be a decline in values, but if you try and sell your property, instead of maybe getting, call it $1 million, you might not even get $500,000. In fact, you'll be lucky if you sell it at all. And I don't know, prices change. The government at the moment takes 3% increase, but I'm sure things are changing a lot faster than that these days. There's also the potential of illegal use of groundwater, which is already over-allocated to the local residents, the market gardens, and the farmers in the surrounding area. There's been quite a few health studies that have shown that living near market gardens with pesticide applications, the heavy traffic, and the fact that there would be extractive industries for a few years before that, and it's all related to an increased risk of adverse health outcomes. We do have reports on this, and if anybody needs a lot more detail on anything that I talk about or that's in the report, please let me know and we can cite all of our references. So the impact on tourism, which I think is really important for the Shire of Harvey as a whole. I'll just make a blanket statement and say that more jobs are generated by tourism than market gardens. Even though there are people employed in market gardens, a lot of them are the mechanics and the people who help pick, but it is temporary and specifically in planting and in harvesting that they're employed. Tourism is also a lot more flexible. It goes all the year round. And we do have fantastic places of tourism right there, which is the Mile Up Pines cottages, which are historic, and I've given a little blurb about that. The Old Coast Road Brewery, where essentially surrounding, other than the pine forest, would be terribly unhealthy and unpleasant if there was mining or horticulture there. And we've also, the pines form one of our local attractions, so we've got things like the Harvey Museum, the Harvey Dam, the beaches that are close by, and really not to have the pines where people use them for horse riding, motorbike riding, hiking, photography, because the pines give a fabulous density of light when you're taking photographs. Everybody loves the pines, and I think that needs to be looked at in more detail. So the loss of the economic development in this regional area is in direct opposition to the actual aims of DPIRD, which is all about regional development. On the unsustainable farming practices, there's been a lot of information put through about microfarming that's come out of Europe, and it shows that in microfarms that are normally organic, non-spray farms, they are 10 times more feasible than your traditional monoculture market gardens. Not only that, but our local market gardens are really not sustainable. There's a demand for a high quality product. Anything that's not perfect is dumped. And most of the owners that we've spoken to specifically have said that up to and even over 50% of produce can be dumped. To the extent that even the FOGO composting system is not coping with this. And a lot of it is dumped out as cattle feed on the fields. Then the groundwater and salinity risks, which is actually a huge one. There is limited groundwater available, and there's a declining water quality. That's not me saying that. There's a lot of reports that actually speak about this. What happens when you deforest an area is that the water levels rise, because the water's not being drawn by the roots. Unfortunately, the saline sits on top of the water, so the saline level sits on top of the water. As the water levels rise, it pushes up the saline into the top level of soil. When the water level drops, as it does over a period of about 8 years again, the salt actually stays in the top soil. It really needs, it's well known in the water world that this happens, and it needs a proper investigation to take this any further. So I just want to say that plantation forests use more water than agricultural land. However, the benefits of reducing the salt loads downstream way outweigh this. And just in our sandy soils and our shallow aquifers, that particular area is highly vulnerable to groundwater contamination, specifically from chemical and fertilizer runoff. The remnant salt after tree felling, which is rising salinity, and then your long-term soil degradation and ecological harm because the soils aren't being protected by the trees. The next section that I'll speak about is the Aboriginal cultural heritage. There hasn't been any mention in the DPIRD information pack that was put out. And there's a whole process that needs to take place there. There's a lot of consultation, and certainly you can argue that there's been degradation because this is a plantation, but there are quite a lot of pockets of the native bush there, and pockets, they're water bodies within the forests, and these may well have signs of Aboriginal culture there that needs to be investigated. I think a big one is the next section, which is the protection of the historic 10th Lighthorse Trail. This is a really important trail. It's a designated trail. It was put through about 5 or 6 years ago. The Lighthorse Bunbury Troop organised not only income, they put a lot of money towards it, but they got a grant funding as well, and this was the trail was put through. The area was actually used in both the First World War and the Second World War for training and for protection of WA by the 10th Lighthorse Brigade. What we have done is attach a letter from the troop so that you can actually see the detail of that. The community engagement and transparency, we have to say that this was almost a surprise finding out about this. Discovered it by accident a few weeks ago, a little survey box sitting in the library with a double-sided page of information. And the only other reference was on the DPIRD site. Certainly no local residents had been approached, and the only the two businesses were approached, that is the Mile of Pine Cottages and the brewery. And we are very concerned that they had so little regard for the residents, specifically, as you all know, that it's a very sensitive land use when you've got residential, and there's a lot involved in that whole in that exclusion of the local voices. In our recommendations, we have said, essentially, first prize is to say, please leave the forests alone. We absolutely will do everything in our power to stop you. And a few of our consultants have advised us of that. And there's a lot on the ecology, specifically relating to the black cockatoos that support this. If we cannot go this route, we will like to work with DPIRD in making sure that the developments and the future commercial and industrial actions that happen there are going to be acceptable to the local residents. So we've put in a lot of information about buffer zones that are vegetated, how that should be managed, groundwater monitoring bores for the water, specifically the groundwater. If there's injections through bores, how that will be handled. We'd like to know the results of that. We'd like to know the 10th Lighthorse Trail should also get a buffer zone. It's no use just having a trail that's supposed to go through forests and suddenly it's running alongside housing. That's really not what it's about. And we'd like to see that formal protection of that trail even given in perpetuity. Certainly, we want protection of the valuable topsoils there before they become from rising salinity. Certainly, the topsoil needs to be stored somewhere, and we'd like to see a detailed plan of all of that. I know that on bigger mining, they insist on that, and they have to be carefully protected. These piles of topsoil for the regeneration afterwards. That topsoil would actually make that land either viable for any kind of gardens or forests afterwards. We'd like the full environment and Aboriginal cultural heritage impact assessment to be taken. We also note that DPIRD is to implement strict sustainability guidelines for any future agricultural use, and that the mining department will ensure that any extractive or mining industries follow conditions of development and mining compliances and with inspections on an annual basis. We certainly want to see the protection of habitat of endangered black cockatoos, and would like that to be properly documented and specifically sent to federal government, because they are shortcuts that can be taken if it's only sent to WA, but if it's properly done, it goes to federal government, and that might have a completely different outcome. Proper program of works and time span is to be presented by DPIRD. And what we would like to see is that the local community and the Shire be allowed constructive involvement in moving forward. We really feel that what they've been doing to date has been completely not transparent, and it affects not only the local residents but the Shire, and we think that possibly a few members could be involved moving forward. We'd also like other potential sites to be investigated. We do know that there are privately owned sites, sand mining sites, in the next Shire up, in the Murray and Waroona area, that have a lot of tonnage, a huge amount of tonnage, and we can certainly supply information on that. They certainly have enough sands to support the building industry moving forward, and we're talking millions of tonnes. I'm not sure why the government, or I can only assume that the government doesn't want to do this because it costs them more money to get that sand out as opposed to taking out of the plantations. So, look, in summary, if we consider all of the concerns, and it's written a lot better than I've put forward verbally, we, the community, urge the councillors of the Shire of Harvey to support us and to protect the local residents that are going to be immediately affected by the DPIRD proposals. We'd obviously, as our first choice, is to stop all logging completely, but we understand that progress needs to be made. But if it does progress, if we can at least have a really good say on that, we'll support sustainable development and regional resilience, but not at the expense of the environment, cultural heritage, or the well-being of established communities. So,
Thank you, Pauline,
got any
for that
questions?
very detailed presentation, and obviously a lot of work's gone into this, so to be congratulated on that, and I'm sure that councillors will have a read of that before we get our presentation next week from
Thank
DPIRD,
you.
and it will give us some background and some thought-provoking questions that we can pose to their representative next
Thanks.
week. But I will open it up if there are any questions from councillors. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Madam President, and I commend the community for for coming along today and showing your support for something that's obviously very important to you. A couple of questions I have, Pauline. Where did the original thought bubble come from for this concept? Is number one. Where did that just suddenly spring from?
Are you talking about the DPIRD?
To use it. I've actually personally looked at the site and gone through it. I was aware of this arising, not today, but I was aware of the project. So I've gone through it, and I can't find anything that says where the original thought bubble came from to get rid of the pines and use the use the land. So do you know where that came from?
Okay, so there's quite a lot of information going right the way back to the 80s when the Forestry Department was actually amalgamated with a lot of others. It was possibly a start. But for this immediate project, there were quite a few reports from CSIRO that we discovered on the internet. And in fact, one of the maps that I've supplied here, you'll see a concept plan. That's actually straight out of one of the reports. That was a big one. Certain things have changed a little bit. Certainly the original plans from the 80s showed a lot more mining, and that has been downgraded a little bit to be more environmentally sensitive. But there's still, if you look at the other map that I've supplied, which is from the 18th of August from the mining sites, you'll see that there's a lot of, there was an exploration license given over this land, and they are in the process and have been for the last couple of years to transfer that and become a fully fledged mine. So it has been in the offing for quite a long time. Certainly politically, I think in 2023, one of the ministers signed off on this, and that's probably sparked this particular investigation that's still in very early, well, a year and a half, very early days as far as the government's concerned.
Okay.
Maybe that's a question we can keep for next week as well. Yep.
One more?
One more, and then I'll go to Councillor Bronwyn.
Thank you. So the report that you've given, I've only had a brief time to read it. It looks very comprehensive. Have you lodged and the community lodged objections through the website as well, rather than, I noticed that you've gone to great lengths to say if you can't object to it, here's a fair and reasonable proposal. Have you gone through and just done strong objections, though, through the website?
I believe a lot of people have gone onto that website, certainly many of the local community, and I'm sure most of the people here have gone onto the website and put in their objections. I will say, and I should have said it earlier, that we have had a petition out, and within less than a week we have over 1,000 signatures, and this will be presented to Council next week.
Councillor Bronwyn.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Pauline, for that. My questions are really to staff in relation to what you've just put forward. So my question first off is, what planning process will this go through? Will this come through Council and we have some input into what's going to occur? Or because of the size of it being a state project, will this be a state-run process?
Mr Hughes.
Through the chair, thank you for your question. So this process is owned by the Western Australian Planning Commission, which is a state entity. So the application will go through them. They are the decision maker. But along that process, the local government's role is to take feedback, discuss, advocate on your behalf, but at the end of the day, it will go to the WA Planning Commission.
Yes. Can I, and thank you for that question, because it's really important, because I think once the rezoning has taken place, we're really on the back foot. So that's pretty important to not give the approval on that.
Yeah, the second question is, normally these projects you have to, if you're going to oppose them, you've got to do it on planning grounds. So my question is, in relation to the planning grounds, what planning grounds could be used, either from an environmental point of view or closeness to residents or impact on the local area in relation to wind and erosion? What type of planning grounds could be argued?
And through the chair, so it's fairly varied. So compliance needs to be met along numerous pieces of legislation. There's external entities such as the Environmental Protection Authority, DPLH, Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage, and the like. So it's referred to external agencies, and that's all collated
and assessed, which is very broad and varied.
From that, when you consider that a lot of places like farming these days use a lot of chemicals on their crops, and the wind usually comes from the southwest and west in that area, and the east during the summer. So I'm just wondering, what's going to be the buffer to ensure these chemical sprays don't impact people who live in the area?
So again, through the chair, that's through numerous reports, investigation reports. I couldn't answer that right now. Obviously, we have to assess them and review them at state level as well. So unfortunately, I can't answer that question at the moment.
Councillor Bronwyn, we have dealt with buffer zones around vegetation before, so there are limits, but that's certainly something that they're a guide, I'd imagine, you know, we can exceed, and council can advocate on that behalf, particularly when it's around residents, and I think freshwater was another one where we discussed that buffer zone there around residential. Councillor Caboni.
Thanks, Madam President. Question to Pauline. I think given that all the residents are here from the Shire of Harvey, and this really is not doesn't come under Shire jurisdiction. Really, the Shire's got nothing to do with this. So my question to you is, have you taken it to your state members of Parliament? Because they're the ones who control this. They're the ones who are in charge of it. And it doesn't matter what we do here. Whether we and it probably won't even come to a vote here, because at best we'll be a referral agency, and I don't know that they'll even do that, because and your report is slightly a bit misleading, because there won't be any rezoning, and I've had a bit to do with this because the company I work for operates a mine in the Pine Plantation. So this is governed by State Forest, or it comes under the state agreement with the Forest Products Commission, and they annex off under Section 19 an area for, in our case, mining, or for vegetable garden. That's what they'll do. They annex it. The state government will annex it off. You refer to extractive industries. I wouldn't refer to that at all, because extractive industries is only for mining on private land. This is Crown land, so it's mining. It's just straight mining, and that. So just be wary of that. But yeah, so my question is have you contacted your state members of Parliament, because they're ultimately the ones responsible?
Okay, so there's one thing that you're not quite right on, and it's very clear in the documentation that the Shire of Harvey is a key stakeholder and does have some sort of sway in the final decision. But yes, we have we're in the process of contacting our Member of Parliament, and we are preparing documentation to present to Parliament in a few different ways. Yes, there are a lot of mining issues there, and we do have a consultant assisting us on that. Yep.
Thank you, and that's a good point that Councillor Caboni raised about reaching out to Mr. Bolt. Yeah, most certainly. Yes. Any other questions? Councillor Dickinson, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Crispin.
Yeah, thank you. And I would like to declare that I am a former commercial vegetable grower, and my family is, extended family is still involved in the business in the area. I'm actually very familiar with this area because of, I've actually lived out at Myla. I'm just wondering if your petition is also going to be presented to Parliament through your local member as well.
Yes, it will be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Crispin?
Just in regards to, was Water Corp or something, did you say, coming in DPERB next week for a presentation?
DPERB are coming in for a presentation at our concept forum.
Would they be aware of why the managed aquifer recharge was cancelled by the government? Would they know much about that? The map, regional plan for it?
I would suggest that the staff member that's involved in this project will be over the detail and will be able to provide that information to council.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
All right, any other questions, councillors? All righty. I once again just want to reinforce that I've actually received a number of objections from the residents, and if I haven't acknowledged receipt of them yet, I will do. But certainly make sure that you forward them through that DPERB site so that they get them, and I forward them on to staff as well. So we've got records of them. Well done. Councillor Holly, final question.
Well, it's not really a question, it's more of a comment, and some of the paperwork is well and truly above me, but I commend you for the way that you've done your report, and as far as I sit, and from what I see of what you put, I'll be backing you 100%, so well done on what you've done. I think you...
Thank you very much.
On that note, and yes, we'll certainly be able to get some good questions of substance for our presentation next week. So thank you, everybody. Now, I have another one here from Elizabeth. Did you wish to come forward, Elizabeth? Pauline's covered it all. Okay. You are welcome to stay for the rest of the agenda briefing if you wish, but we won't be discussing this point, but you're welcome to stay. But well done, everybody, for coming along. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I'll give you a couple of moments to move out before we...
The rest of the meeting's pretty exciting if you want to hang around.
I think we're due for a beer now.
All right, councillors, we will... I'll just get them to... Mr Beach, could you just close that door for me, please? Thank you, because they'll all have a chat out there, I'm sure. Councillors, I'm going to bring forward item 551 that deals with the Australian Day citizenship, so that if there are any questions, any further questions of Mr Beach or yourselves, I can do that. Oh, okay. Rest in place. All right, we're back on deck. So, councillors, item 5.5.1, the Australian Day Citizenship Ceremony. Are there any questions, councillors? Councillor Carboni.
Where did the suggestion come to shift the citizenship ceremonies off Australia Day?
CEO?
I'm not the author of this report, though ultimately I'm responsible for the agenda. When the rewrite of this report came through, it was determined that the best way to address setting the process for citizenships to be held on Australia Day was to bring the policy through to council to workshop and then set that direction. As part of the recommendation and noting that we have the caretaker period and a new council coming on board, the timing was of such that to have a decision on that policy to be able to implement in time to make the arrangements for Australia Day were restrictive. So as a result of that, and knowing that the citizenship for Australia Day can be held 3 days either side of Australia Day, and not having a decision from council in regards to alternating ceremonies for next year, the proposal was a neutral one to put this one forward to council as a recommendation, but also to workshop that policy. But it's purely due to the timing and the ability to be able to hold it either side of that Australia Day date.
So just confirming that it would just be a one-off? Is that the intent, or depending on what the outcome of that?
Depending on what the outcome is from council, but the recommendation was to favour neither or any location in the Shire, and to put forward a proposal that would fit in with the timing while the policy was being workshopped and adopted by council.
Councillor Carboni?
Can I have an option put in the report next week that the citizenship ceremonies get held in both Australind and Harvey at a time suggestion that Councillor Beach suggested? Sorry, Mr. Beach, yeah. Well, you hear that often. Yeah.
We'll word up that would be an alternate? Yes. Yeah, okay. All righty, Councillor Bromham, question? No prelude question?
No, it's not a question. I want to follow up on what Councillor Carboni said, because I see the 26th as being the day it should be.
Well, that's for the
held on.
debate.
Yeah,
This is
I know.
agenda briefing, so it's
So
a
can we put
question.
that in as a alternate motion? Alternate?
We can provide assistance to councillors in regards to wording for alternative motions. That will be for councillors to raise during the council meeting.
Okay.
All righty. Are there any other questions, councillors? No? Okay, that's it, Mr. Beach. You're more than welcome to stay if you wish. Thank you. All in the fullness of time, Mr. Beach. Yes. All right, we'll move back to the agenda proper. So we'll go to the CEO's reports, item 5.1.1, which is the West Australian, the WELGA Annual General Meeting. We're looking at some voting delegates. I suppose the best way forward is if you would like to forward your nominations, and we'll put that in the report for next week. Okay. 5.1.2, which is the lease agreement for the Yarloop Community Resource Centre. Do we have any questions around that one? Councillor Dickinson.
Excuse me. Looking at the image that was provided, there's an exclusion zone. I was just wondering what that exclusion zone, why that was in there, why it wasn't for the whole centre.
Through the Shire President. So the Yarloop Community Resource Centre had struggled in part to maintain the grounds surrounding the building, and so their request and part of the reason that the lease needed to come to council was for the exclusion of that area. So work's been done with the Parks and Gardens team in particular, and property maintenance, to have that that section of the garden out the front maintained by the Shire from here on.
Councillor Bromham?
Yeah, I noticed as part of the report they talked about the library not going ahead at this particular moment in time, and it's remaining at the school. And I just wondered if there was a risk assessment done, given there are, to my knowledge, there are people in Yarloop. How would you say that?
Councillor Bromham, I think
Yeah.
that's a bit inappropriate, but however, we did have a report and a council resolution sometime, a couple of months ago, in regards to libraries and what is
There was a risk
occurring or
assessment
planned
done.
for Yarloop.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is there's a risk assessment done on the primary school.
Oh, the current location
Yeah, the library, because it's staying there in the report.
for the time being.
Because it can't move over. So there's a risk assessment on the primary school.
No risk
Probably
assessment
not.
has been undertaken at the current time in regards to remaining in the current location at the primary school. So
I'm just looking at the protection of
That's the
students,
status.
really.
One would hope, though, with it's co-located with a school or part of the school, that it's relatively safe for students. Any other questions, councillors, in regards to this one?
Oh,
Councillor
sorry.
Bromham, yeah, thank you. Okay, item 5.1.3, which is the Shire of Harvey Council Plan 25 through to 35. This will require an absolute majority next week. Are there any questions, councillors? Councillor Crispin?
I've looked through it again. I didn't see that there was any changes. There hasn't been any changes since last month, has there?
You can talk to that, thank you.
Through the Shire President. So within the comments section of the report, there's a list of minor administrative changes. We only received one public submission in relation to the council plan, and there were some minor amendments from that submission which we noted and incorporated into the report. Otherwise, it was really a second edit done by staff to ensure that the information in there was accurate, and we've listed those administrative changes.
Any other questions, councillors? No, thank you. Infrastructure Services, 5.2.1, the Ridley Place Fish Cleaning Station. Questions, councillors? Councillor Carboni?
I'm trying to frame a question in my mind while I'm thinking of this. In the report, it says about increased demand as far as the boat ramp goes. And it would seem we've got two conflicting uses for this area, this Ridley Place area. And as it says in the report, that boating demand is getting more, and you've only got to see that with all the parking on the grass verges and everything like that. So I guess my question is do we need to revisit this master plan for this area? Because once we build this restaurant thing, the demand for the parking out there, I mean, some days it's chock-a-block out there. So do we need to revisit the master plan, I guess, is what I'm saying. Because I think a fish station is required there, just by the amount of boating that gets done there now. So, yeah.
Revisit the master plan. I wouldn't even want to go there, but I'll hand over to the CEO, and make a comment on that one.
Look, I would say at the stage we are now in regards to the year's worth of discussion with DPLH in regards to the land tenure and the site nearly ready to be secured for a commercial lease, that the ability to change the location of the proposed cafe restaurant is now set. No, but from the report, that was the major impediment in regards to the location of the fish cleaning station and the proximity to that proposed development.
Councillor Crispin?
Similar to that, it was just the questioning around the locality of the two, and if we had any future plans, whether it be just with consultants, about an alternative spot for the boat ramp in general, bringing it up. So it's not where the the cafe is going to be, actually moving it up the estuary somehow, because I know that when I went down there the other day, it was pretty much the parking was slammed. So it's just, a bit of a concern.
Mr. Kettner?
Through the President, the location as it was suggested is the correct location for the fishing and boating activities. That is correct. So there's nothing wrong with the proposal except that it's right next to a cafe or proposed cafe and restaurant. And the circulation of the boats as they come out, they pull up right next to that spot. There's water there, they wash down their boats, and that's, from that point of view, a good spot for the fish cleaning station. It could come on the BP service station side, but the same issues in terms of cleaning and servicing would be there. However, the circulation is wrong. So because the boats come in that end, they don't go out that end. So there's that sort of circulation difficulty. So it's a pragmatic response to that. I do agree that we could possibly look in the future to where it would better fit, but where it's proposed is just doesn't work in terms of the conflict.
Councillor Dickinson?
I think you've probably already answered, but my question was south of the boat ramp behind BP, could that be an alternate site?
It was to do with the traffic flow? The circulation, yes. Would be an issue in regards to that. Councillor Crispin?
Sorry, just in regards to that one, I've heard this a long time ago, but isn't that side the water height or something in the soil there? So if you try and put like a water wastage, like a water, obviously, Spot says here we've got to put some tank in there to catch all the water. Would that have a potential of flooding if we did have it on that opposing side anyway?
I think the water table itself is high, that's correct. And the odd part is if we put in underground storage, when they're empty, they're liable to pop out of the ground because the water table's high. So there's a whole range of difficulties on that, on the whole site really, but yeah.
All right, any other questions, councillors? Okay, we'll move on to item 5.2.2, Regional Road Group Project Status, and we have Councillor Crispin and Councillor Junio who wish to step out. Thank you, Councillor Junio. Any questions, councillors, in relation to this one? All happy with the explanation? I saw lots of figures there, so from what I can understand is the promenade, we don't go ahead with that one. Mr Kettner, perhaps you can just quickly talk us through what the proposals are, and then I feel confident that we're all across it. Yeah.
Through the Shire President, yes, I'll talk you through them all. First project is Uduck Road. Simply said, the funding available or allocated is too little. Now that we have the cost estimates with a preliminary design, and we are asking that if should we proceed, we would need more money from the Shire and from Regional Road Group. And then we also, second stage of that decision is that we split the construction because we were ready to go, except that Western Power takes at least 9 months to complete the design and then around another 9 months to do the relocation of the poles. And the reason for the poles relocation is that the widening of the bell mouth of the two intersections to a triple standard. And the reason we got a triple standard is because the new intersection on the highway with Forestry Road is to a triple standard. The main road, as I said, they both must be the same because they're taking the same trucks. So it all makes sense. And then there's also a bit of Harvey water relocation, some Telstra relocation, but that can all be done hopefully in this first year. And then by that time, Western Power will hopefully get their act together, and then we can then build a road in the second year together with the relocation of the poles, or immediately following the relocation of the poles. And the road construction is actually fairly quick, the biggest problem being traffic accommodation. So that's Uduck Road. The second one is the promenade. Is the second one the promenade? Where am I? Well, sorry, second one is Old Coast Road. Old Coast is ready to go. Again, we're just waiting for Main Roads to put a tick behind the street lighting design. But we anticipate that to be fairly soon. And the street lighting installation can follow the road construction in this particular case. And even if it does get put in place together with the road construction, apparently it takes up to 12 months for Western Power to switch the lights on. So even if they're standing there, they might be off for a year. So, which is a bit crazy, but it is what it is. So that one is ready to go. Again, the funding allocation is less than what is estimated by the QS. Not much less, but it's enough to be of a concern. And we're requesting additional funding from both the Shire and from Regional Road Group. Then the promenade has its own set of problems. The solution proposed originally is technically good solution, pragmatically less so. And to actually construct a solution there, we lose 35 parking bays, which in that area is going to be very problematic, particularly now with the new development there. And we can see how the cars are parking everywhere in sight. And to lose 35 bays is going to be problematic. And on the practical side, to do any construction work, this is going to be very difficult. And what's not even in the cost estimates is the impact on that covered walkway with big columns that have to be relocated. It's going to be a bit of a nightmare for the build. In addition, a quick scan of the costings, I think, again, the costings probably short by double, by half. So there's a recommendation that the promenade be cancelled and the other two go ahead as suggested.
And then the funding for the promenade is what is transferred across to UDUC and Old Coast Road?
If we separate them all out,
yes.
we deal with them individually.
Yes.
The promenade's funding gets cancelled. The advance 40% we get must go back. However, if the other two are approved, we get that money back again in a different form. So I haven't done the net figure overall, but I think we come at, there's spare money this financial year. There's quite a bit of spare money this financial year, but next year there's a greater demand for money because of the greater costs of UDAC Road project.
Okay. And we sort of guaranteed that we get that. What if we don't get that funding? What happens then? Where the Shire's got to look for more.
President, I'm very confident in
our
representation on the Regional Road Group.
Okay.
And the persuasiveness of our members. So I'm.
Alrighty. Very good.
Spend what's left on Brockman Road in the other.
Yes. If there's any left over. Councillor Coleman, thank you.
Thank you. So instead of removing the funding entirely from the promenade, could we not modify the intersection just before you get to the farm hotel so that you can actually turn right properly without having to go up to the roundabout and come back, and rather than do like an almost an illegal U-turn? It just needs some of the curbing modified, which I would, you know, I'm not in your game, but I would think wouldn't cost very much just to move a bit of curbing to make it safe to turn right as you're travelling down towards the hotel, to try and turn right into the other shopping area. It's actually a left turn only out, so it just needs to be modified a bit. Could we not find some funding in there to make that safer?
So, President, I think it was just yesterday, watched about 15 videos of all the illegal activities in terms of the vehicles turning right, going the wrong way, crossing the road through that.
I do it all the time.
I did recognise one of the vehicles there. Yeah, so the reason is it's a right to cross and a left out only is because to eliminate the conflict that occurs particularly with right turns. And if that were open as a four-way intersection, there'd be a lot more conflict. And that's why it was done. The roundabout is 100 meters down the road, and the safe turn is around the roundabout. I accept the people are doing the illegal things. As a matter of fact, we are looking at measures now to prevent the people illegally going across that intersection in multiple ways. To answer your question, the fix is relatively easy to do what you're suggesting, Councillor. I don't know whether that's right for the traffic management, but it certainly will be convenient for those who are currently doing the illegal thing. But it will significantly increase the demand for using that intersection as a four-way intersection, which will result, without doubt, in traffic congestion at that particular point, which will then back up in all directions. So from my point of view, technically, I would not support it.
Councillor Coleman?
Just a follow-up, if I may. So with the videos that you have you noticed a significant amount of traffic coming out of that same exit? Because I'm there probably a couple of times a week and note a lot of cars going in illegally, as you say, and I'll declare I do that, but I always come out one of the other intersections, and most of the cars that I have noticed personally come out one of the other exits rather than use that same one. So do your videos show a significant amount of exit on that same exit that would cause for dangerous or dangerous behaviour?
Through the President, there's almost every movement that's not allowed on that intersection happens. So to answer your question, yes.
I suppose my only concern that I raised was that pedestrian crossing from the Woolworths through to the new and cars stop sometimes to let pedestrians through. Some people just step out thinking that the cars are going to stop, when in actual fact it's a thoroughfare for vehicles. So maybe at some stage we need to make that safer somehow, whether it's signage or something.
Pedestrian signage.
Yeah, pedestrian signage, so that...
So, President, if I can comment, it's a very important point. There's a big irony in all of this. The traffic moves through very slowly because of all the friction and the car movements, but they're in first and second gear. So when somebody does step out between a car or steps out across the pedestrian crossing, it's I'll call it safer than if they were able to travel at 40 across there. So it's as I say, there's a big irony in that. But certainly we would have to look at the pedestrian safety, particularly because the vehicles can park on the median or make a U-turn through the parking areas. There's all sorts of odd arrangements there. And I think it needs a separate look. And if we have to come down the road in a couple of years' time and review this particular plan that was put forward, I think that could possibly be done. But right now, the pedestrian safety needs a separate look. I agree.
Okay. Councillor Bromham?
I just wondered, is this an opportunity to be the first council to put in a wombat crossing?
Maybe. All righty. If there's no further... yes, Mr Winter?
Madam President, can I just have a look at recommendation number 5? I think there might be an administration error. That should, I think, be 1.425 million.
Yeah, I thought that was, yeah. Yeah, I saw 1,425. Yeah. Just on 0.5. Amend the long-term fund. Yeah. Thank you, Mr Winter. All right, if there's no further questions, Susie, you're going out, are you? Thank you. Welcome back. We're now into Sustainable Development 5.3.1, Application for Development Approval, Retrospective Change of Use. unhosted short-term rental accommodation at 17 Loft House Drive, Australind. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Coleman?
I just query the last paragraph on page 30. It says quiet time is after 10 p.m. Well, the police won't attend if it's before midnight anyway. So quiet time is really generally after midnight, not 10 p.m.
So through the chair, we can look into that, confirm.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Bronwyn?
Yeah, I just did have one on this, and I can't find it now, but basically if there's a complaint, it's saying what we're going to do is we're going to deal with that complaint at the time. I just wondered how we're going to deal with a complaint at the time if you have a party on Saturday night that goes overboard, when you haven't got any rangers and we don't have any police.
So through the chair, so if there's noise and the like, the first protocol is actually WA Police. So they should be contacted in the first instance. Obviously we can take complaints, noise complaints, if it's consistent noise complaints compared to a one-off. It depends, the EHOs, environmental health officers, can follow up on consistent noise complaints, as in take readings and whatnot, and then take it up with the alleged offending parties. But if it's a once-off party event, let's say, that should be drawn to the attention of the WA Police first.
And there's also the contact details should be at the front as well, so people can contact the owner. Yeah, councillor Coleman?
Thank you. Just querying, in the officer's recommendation number B, we're talking about retrospective change of use, but now we're saying if the development doesn't substantially commence within the 2-year period, a new approval must be obtained. But if it's retrospective, shortly it's already done?
Through the chair, thanks to that, councillor. Yeah, we'll look into that as well.
Agree? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? No, thank you. We'll move on to corporate services, 5.4.1, payments for July 2025. Any questions, councillors? No. 5.4.2, financial statements as at the 31st of July 2025. Any questions? Thank you. 5.4.3, artificial intelligence, policy, strategy and transparency statement. Any questions, councillors, in regards to this one? Just what, ChatGPT? Yeah. Alrighty. No questions? Okay. Thank you. We've dealt with community and lifestyle 5.5.1. We'll now move into notice of motion. We have one there for Councillor Holly and one for Councillor Junio that we will deal with next week if there are no questions. We'll now deal with items behind closed doors. Let me know when that happens. Thanks, Adam. All good. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Thank you. It's been a long afternoon, so I declare this agenda briefing closed at 6:40.